So this is day 27 of our overland tour through West Africa, and we started off in Nahudabu and made our way towards Attar. Basically it was just a long desert road most of the way. We saw a number of camels, both wild and travelling in caravans. We passed a number of towns on the way, and clearly this is an incredibly poor country. Many of the cars that you see, honestly, I don't know how they're on the road, but they're on their last legs, and there's no maintenance, cracked windscreens and tyres with hardly any rubber on it, and much of the housing is incredibly primitive. It's a bit sad, really. We stop at a garage, and they have a store of some sort. You're very lucky if you can get an ice cream that hasn't been refrozen half a dozen times because they've had numerous power cuts. Anyway, on our drive to Attar, as I say, it was mainly desert all the way, but as we got closer, the landscape changed quite significantly, and there was a lot of hills and mountains, all very dry and rocky, but it was quite interesting. In Attar, we stayed at the Bab Sahara campsite, and the second day we took four-wheel drive vehicles up to Chinquetti, to a very old town that is now a UNESCO heritage site. The people here were pretty friendly compared to Attar. In fact, when we arrived in Attar, the kids were throwing stones at the truck, which I think they were just being a bit juvenile, but there was an air of sort of tension, I suppose, a little bit. I'm not sure why. Anyway, the drive in the four-wheel drive vehicles was a little treacherous, with rock slides pretty commonplace and steep drop-offs in some places. The scenery was worth it though, and the heat was relentless. And it was no surprise when one of the very old tyres, I imagine you call a tyre something with rubber on it, which this was pretty close to not having. But anyway, we had a blowout. Fortunately, kept it on the road, and they changed the tyre, and we carried on. The town of Chinquetti was almost made entirely of local stone blocks and in various stages of repair. We went with a young lady who invited us to her shop, and we shared a Coca-Cola, which was nice in the intense heat. But actually no one there really wants their photo taken unless some money changed hands. I even offered a girl a banana, which she gratefully accepted after she turned me down for a photo. And I said, okay, I'll give you the banana for a photo, and she turned the banana down. So anyway, we left the bananas with them anyway, so they got them, and I didn't get a photo. On the drive back to Attar, we climbed a rocky historic settlement and took a view over the plains. And the temperature was over 40 by this stage, and very uncomfortable. Mind you, the drive back through the valley was absolutely spectacular. Anyway, the following day we headed for the capital of Nouakchott. Again, we passed through several small towns and even managed a kick around with some of the local kids. There was a lot more camels along the way, and the landscape changed again with different sand, which was very grey, and on a few occasions we drove through a couple of swarms of locusts, which was pretty interesting. I didn't realise locusts were quite so large. But it was a long drive and it was extremely hot, and the roads were actually pretty reasonable by Mauritania standards. They tend to have almost just it's certainly a single lane highway, but it's not even really wide enough for two trucks in some places, so it gets a bit hairy when you pass a truck going the other way. Anyway, we arrived in Nouakchott finally, and able to book into quite a nice hotel on the beach, where I am right now actually. And here we have a few days while we get a Senegal visa and have a look around. And the hotel, as I said, is right on the beach and close to where the fishermen bring in all their boats. And we yesterday went and watched that happen. It was a hive of activity, and it's funny, everyone sort of chips in. I suspect the locals are hanging around looking for a bit of work which they'll get paid for. And to be honest, the smell wasn't great. We've been to a few fishing type markets and ports, but this was about as whiffy as it gets. And we actually decided to not go into the marketplace because it was very, very strong. Anyway, there's a real buzz about the place, and there was plenty of fish caught, I must say, although they're not that big. We went into the central market in Nukachot, which is very busy. I got some great photos. They have a very interesting taxi service. Basically, you wait on the side of the road and wave what looks to be a taxi down. They're not obvious, but eventually one will stop. Now, normally they've already got people in them, which doesn't seem to matter. And you know, with a mix of hand signals and pidgin varieties of languages and Google Translate, fortunately, you work out whether they're heading in the direction that you want to go, and if they are, you hop in. If you don't, you wait for the next one. But you know, we squeezed into the first one we went in next to a couple of people, and then when we stopped again, we had to do a reshuffle because women aren't allowed to sit next to anyone that isn't their husband if it's a male, and so and sometimes it means that people can't get in the taxi because you can't follow the rules in that respect. Anyway, a ride seems to, irrespective of how far you go, although you don't travel that far, it's probably 2 or 3 kilometres maximum, is about 50 cents. And to be honest, some of the taxis you got into were unbelievable. There was one particular one where I don't think it had any panels on the sides. We hit a couple of other cars, albeit we only nudged them on the side, but seems to be the norm. No one even blinked an eyelid, and we just carried on as if things were completely normal. The market itself has anything from textiles, shoes, jewellery, food, you name it, and it's really great being in places like that are so busy with so many people. Yesterday we went for a ride to a place called Bila, to a camel market, which was very interesting, and a legitimate camel market. It certainly wasn't for the tourists. I don't know how many camels were there. I'm guessing somewhere between 500 and 1,000. They had a few cows as well, which were in sort of penned off areas, all very basic. And look, it's quite amusing when a camel decides to not go where its owner wants it to, and they start chasing it, and great entertainment. And my understanding is that you've sort of a average sort of camel goes for about 850 US. I didn't see any money changing hands, but there were certainly lots of people wandering around looking at camels. And if you want one, that's the place to be. I didn't buy one on this occasion, unfortunately. Anyway, tomorrow we head towards Senegal. Hopefully it'll be more straightforward than coming from Morocco to Mauritania. On a somewhat sombre note, unfortunately, news came through a couple of days ago that one of our fellow passengers that was involved in the truck accident and has been in critical condition for a couple of weeks now passed away. The British Embassy are helping the body be repatriated, as sadly he doesn't have any family. We haven't had any recent updates on the status of the second passenger, who's still in ICU, but at last communication he was improving. Let's hope so.